Today we're going to set up a paper in MLA format. One thing you should know is that Microsoft Word isn't necessarily in compliance with the MLA. And so before you even begin typing your paper, there are certain things that need to be changed. And we're going to begin with the font. To access the font, you go to the Home tab at the top of the page. Click on that. And you'll notice it says Calibri 11 point. That's not in compliance with MLA. MLA calls for Times New Roman 12 point. The reason that they require Times New Roman is because it's a very easily readable type. In fact, most of the newspapers in the world use Times New Roman because it causes very little eye strain to the reader. So first, we're going to begin by clicking on that little arrow next to the word Calibri, and then scrolling down to Times New Roman and clicking on that. And we can change the 11 to a 12 in the same way by clicking on that arrow and scrolling down. Or we could click on the capital A with the upward facing arrow to the right, and that'll increase the size of the font incrementally. So here we have Times New Roman 12 point, and that is in compliance with the MLA. The next thing that we're going to want to do is change the spacing on our paper. And the way we do that is going down to this little subsection called the paragraph box. And you'll notice that there's a little arrow in the lower right hand corner. We're going to click on that little arrow and the paragraph dialog box will pop up. You'll notice down here where it says spacing, before 0 point, after 10 point. This guy right here causes more problems than almost anything else in formatting a paper. This is the default for Microsoft, and it should be not 10 point, but in fact 0 point. When it's at 10 point, what that does is include additional space between paragraphs and between entries on your header. And you don't want that to happen because it makes your paper artificially longer than it should be. So make sure you change this from 10 point to 0 point. And the line spacing, the default on Microsoft Word now is multiple, and it's usually 1.15 inches or 1.15 spaces, which is rather odd. So we're going to switch that to the default, which is double. Once you have that, 0, 0, and double, everything else just leave alone. Click OK, and your spacing is now set. The next thing we want to switch are the margins. And so to access the margins, we go to the Page Layout tab at the top of the page, and the whole page layout box appears here. There is a little box toward the left-hand side called Margins, and you're going to click on that, and the Margins dialog box pops up. You'll see that the default for Microsoft Word is 1 inch on the top and bottom and 1.25 inches on the left and the right. That is not correct. So you're going to want to switch that to 1 inch top, bottom, left, and right. MLA calls for 1 inch margins all around, and we're going to click on that. Now that that's done, we are going to begin by typing our heading. And as you know, the heading includes your name first, and then you hit enter once, and then you write your teacher's name. In this case, I'll write my own. Hit enter once, and then you write down the class that you're in. I'm going to write English 1 for example purposes. I'm going to use Roman numeral 1, which is a capital I. And then if your teacher requires you to indicate what section, put a slash and then the hour that you have that teacher. In this case, I'll put 7. Hit enter once, and then type the date. 10 September 2013, for example. Notice that when we type the date, you include the day first, 10, then the month, September, and then the year. There are no commas anywhere in there. Once your header is set up, hit enter, and you type an interesting title. Hopefully your title will be a snapshot of your paper, as all titles should be. You notice that this isn't centered, and it should be. So in order to center your title, highlight it, and then go back up to your Home tab. And you'll see in the paragraph dialog box, that little mini box up there, you've got these icons. This one, where it's flush on the left and jagged on the right, means that flush right. But you want it to be centered, so you're going to go jagged on both sides. You're going to click on that, and it will center your title. And you hit enter once and you'll notice you're still centered. So you want to set up the paper properly by going back up to that paragraph dialog box and clicking on left justify. Some of you guys will be tempted to do what's called a justified paper by clicking on this box at the top of the page where it's nice and clean on all four sides. While that might look nice and clean, it's very difficult to read because it artificially adds space between letters and words that wouldn't be there otherwise. Your paper should be left justified, so we're clicking on that box. Then you begin by indenting, and to indent, you hit the tab key once, and that'll automatically put in a 1/2 inch indent, which is the default. And then begin by typing your paper. Now, if this is just a one-page paper, you're all set. But if this paper is going to extend beyond one page, you know that you need a heading. Now, to include a heading, you go up into this no man's land above your name and below the top margin of the paper, and you just double-click up there. When you double-click, you'll see the header dialog box appears, and on the bottom, the footer. And we're just going to ignore the footer because it doesn't matter to us right now. Now, you need to have the header because on multiple pages, your teacher might want to spread them out, and if anything should get mixed up, your teacher should always be able to tell whose paper it is. So you want to number your pages, and you want to include your last name on every page. So we've clicked on the header, and this whole thing changes to a header dialog box. You'll see you have things for header, footer, and page number on the far left. We're interested in the page numbers. We're going to click on that. And we know that we want our page number to be at the top of the page, so we're going to click on that. And then you have all these options for a top left, a center, a top right page number. We want top right, so we're going to click on that selection, and you'll notice it automatically puts a 1 in there. Then you need to type in your last name, and you need to make sure that you hit the space bar so that there is a space between the end of your name and the number of the page number. Now, if you're being really sharp, you'll notice that this is not the same typeface as we had been using, the Times New Roman 12 point, and it should be. So make sure that it is by highlighting the whole name and the page number, going back to the home dialog, the home tab, and switching it from that default up to Times New Roman 12 point. Once that is done, your header should be set for all successive pages. To get out of the dialog box, the header dialog box, just go down to the body of your paper and click, and you'll see that this is a lighter gray, which means that the computer is automatically adding it to every successive page. And then you begin with your paper.